Welcome to QSR Nation, your weekly dose of food service marketing tips and business strategies for success. Here's your hosts, Josh Anderson, Beth Oots, and Anthony Pierce from the PFS Brands National Headquarters.
Welcome back to QSR Nation with Josh, Beth, and Tony as we continue our discussion with Carrie Luxem about restaurant HR techniques. What are some ways to improve your soft people skills? I know that's a big topic, but to become a better leader, how can you do that?
It is a big topic, but I think it's a really important one. And I think, as restaurateurs or business owners or managers, it's so important to build relationships. Relationships are at the core of leadership. And so some people, this is one of the questions that people don't want to, how do I do that? Like build relationships? It does take effort to do that. And I think we talked about this a little bit earlier, but first and foremost, if you're interested in building relationships, if you're leading, you should be, you've got to be authentic. I have met, you don't take a chef that's serious and introverted and try to make him extroverted and charismatic. Be who you are, and the right people will be inspired by you. So I think that's the first step in building relationships, is really understanding who you are and staying true to that. When I started in my career at Potbelly, the first 2 years, I had fun, but I was trying to be everything to everybody, and I didn't really understand who I was supposed to be, and I was trying to please everyone, and it was really chaotic, but you just have to, this is who I am, and I'm going to be that, and it works out much better that way. I am a believer, and I preach a lot about this, about being positive. And it's really easy to be positive when things are going really great, but when you don't have the right amount of staff and you're stressed out and your sales are down, it's hard to stay positive, but you've got to train yourself to do that. And, it just makes a world of difference if you can train yourself to stay positive in the high and the low times. And then, I think, and we talked about this too, but showing that you care, and that seems like such an obvious one, but so many people think that they show they care, but they're running around and they're busy and they forget those little things to do to show they care. And again, these don't have to be large, expensive gifts to your team. And quite honestly, those are the things, those are nice, and people like to get things, but those aren't the things that matter. It's really about being nice to people every day, recognizing different things that are happening in lives. Again, graduating, having a baby, getting married, celebrated a year with your company, just really taking an interest in your people or in the people around you. Being available is really important way to show you care. There's nothing worse than going into a restaurant and seeing the leadership in there, and they're just on their phones behind the line and sitting down on their computer, and they're just not really focused on giving the attention to people. So you've definitely got to do that. And then I think in terms of showing you care, it's really important to be super direct and honest with people. So this one is really hard for people, and I think there is so much power in being very, very direct and honest, even when it's so hard to do it. And I think that is integrity. And it's hard to do because I think people don't have the confidence in themselves, and they're afraid of hurting someone's feelings. But ultimately, when you tell someone the truth, it really does help them. And most of the time, they actually like the feedback. So I think just being really honest and direct is so important in building relationships. So making sure that you're doing that. And again, just being kind and respectful, and everybody should be treated that way, in my opinion. Even when you have an underperformer, it's really about how you approach it, and that you approach things in the, with the concern for them to improve or be better, not approaching it like, how can I get this person out of my company? Obviously, there's going to be those people that don't make it and that you need to get rid of, but just really having a genuine interest in helping people improve is certainly important. So that's it. In terms of soft skills, I mean, focusing on building relationships, we just talked about, like, focusing on managing the conflicts, which is really hard for people. I think, being a really skilled problem solver, I've noticed over a course of, last few years, a lot of people that we work with, they're waiting for somebody to, come up with the solution for them. And there's a lot of power in really getting good at being a problem solver. I mean, I have a small team, and I make sure that's one of the qualities that I need. Somebody that is going to have the ability to take a problem and fix it, and I think that oftentimes people don't think they have the tools, but it's a mindset. You've got to figure out how to solve problems.
There's obviously that can be a confidence, level issue from the team, but sometimes, going back to leadership time, I can't talk now, the leadership aspect, it can also be sometimes intimidating from that leader, to want to speak up because, your team maybe has good ideas, they have things they can push in, but if those aren't received well from a leadership standpoint, all you're doing really is hurting your company, because you could have problems that are fixable from your team members who are capable of doing that, but they're afraid to maybe speak up.
Yeah. Yep, and it's so important as the leader, the manager, that you make people feel comfortable. And then when they say something that you don't agree with or don't like, it's how you respond to it. I think that's so important.
Yeah, we learned here that looking at someone directly and saying you're wrong is not the way to handle that, and I continue to apologize for Beth. You knew it was me. That was awesome.
I'm getting to know you guys.
You've really brought to light a lot of issues that we've had.
They're all just looking at me. You talk about being direct and
not having so much confidence.
Okay, so Beth and Tony, let me tell you how to manage conflict. So being a problem solver, expect difficult people like Anthony. You've got to expect that they're going to be. Lady. Yeah, but no, there's always going to be intense people, no matter what. And when you get really
Write
good at, when you get really good and hone your skills at managing those people, and sometimes they're just, people are really intense, but that's not a bad thing. I mean, if somebody is outright mean or inappropriate in some way, that's different. But if somebody's intense, and I've learned to love that. I didn't always love it. I used to get very intimidated by operators that were, really aggressive or whatever, but I've really learned to manage that. But I think expecting that and getting really good at managing those intense people or those negative people will definitely help you in, soft skills. So, definitely doing that. And when it comes to managing conflict, a lot of people that, I'll do trainings and things like that, and operators will say, listen, I know it's important to tell people the reality. I just don't know how to do it. I don't know how to get started. And I think a lot of times, as kind of silly as it sounds, it's like having a conversation starter with the person that you have to give feedback to. And it could even be something like, hey, listen, it's just being brutally honest. Hey, Anthony, I got to tell you, I'm really uncomfortable having to give you this feedback, but I think it's really important that you hear it so you can make improvements or whatever it may be. And so it puts somebody at ease that they understand something is coming and I'm a little uncomfortable with it. And then why is it important? I think giving the why on these things is so important, but you have to give people the truth, and it's a lot of times when conflict is happening, people are worried about who's going to win. It's not about winning. It's, it's not about who's right or wrong. It's really about having a resolution, and if you're a true leader, doesn't get real focused on being right. You know, it's not about being right. It's about fixing the problems. If you're working in a company, we're all working towards the same goals. We want to have a successful brand, and so we can have differences of opinions. You've got to be open-minded. You've got to remain calm, Anthony. Okay.
Beth is like your gigantic fan now. You're like her idol.
I'm fangirling right now.
She's like, wow, this is like free therapy. You know?
Watch out, Pitbull. I'm hearing now.
Yeah. Our therapy session for 1 million people to listen to. So.
Great. Oh, that's too funny. Okay, so I mean, we talked about the initial question was improving, you know, the people skills, and I think we talked about building relationships and the importance of managing conflict. And I think like the third one I'll talk about really is focusing as an individual on learning and growing every day. You know, I put effort into figuring out how I can learn and, you know, grow and evolve as a leader, as a manager every single day. And so how do you do those things? I mean, there are so many things that you can do. I mean, you can read. I'm not a big pick up a huge book and read it, but I read a lot of posts. I read a lot of articles. Of course, I write a lot of articles, but the way I write them is I read a lot of little things and stuff like that. So I think, you know, the world just filled, especially with social media, and there's so much information out there. There's so many amazing leaders, some that are, you know, kind of celebrities or whatever, and some are that are a little more low key, but really learning from others in that way has been really great. You know, I tell people that want to grow as leaders, obviously you have to do things that you step out of your comfort zone. That's when you grow. You know, if you are really doing things that scare you, that's how you grow. And I have come to love this. When I first started doing videos, oh gosh, you guys, I was so scared. I don't know what it was. I just couldn't wrap my brain around getting in front of a camera and doing that. So it took me some time, but I just decided I'm just going to do it. And I just continually evolve. I look at some of the videos I did at first. They are so bad. so bad. But, you know, I continually learn and grow. I'm a believer to do what you're really good at naturally, like focus on your strengths. I'm not going to focus on something that I would absolutely hate to do, but it's really about breaking free from your comfort zone and doing things that are going to push the limits for you every day. I am a believer too, if you want to grow as a person, you got to surround yourself with the right people. You know, your friends, social media. I do a really good job of removing really negative people in my life. You know, and again, that doesn't mean people with different opinions that are, I love that. I love intense people. A lot of people in my life are very, very introverted and serious. My husband and I are the most opposite people you'll ever meet. He never talks. He's very introverted. He's a very serious guy. And I learn a ton, you know, from him. So I think, but really choosing who you're going to surround yourself with is really important. So, I mean, there's just so many things that you can do to learn and grow and challenge yourself, volunteering, you know, doing things, again, that are just going to expose you to different things and help you learn and grow. So soft skills, people skills, not as much focus on that when you're learning, when you're in school, you know, you learn how to do your job, you learn how to, you know, or even in the restaurant world, you learn how to, you know, run an operation, but you don't focus as heavily on building relationships and how exactly do you manage conflict and how do I learn and grow every single day as a leader. And I think the emphasis needs to be put on those things and practiced and talked about and incorporated into your daily routines and your manager meetings and things. And, you know, things will start to improve.
I really like that part about learning, and that's even like when we produced our, you know, the QSR Nation podcast. If it was a little bit scary, obviously, to put out there to begin with, but
right.
If it's not scary when you're making change or innovation, then it's probably not big enough anyway.
Yep.
Yeah, right. Absolutely love that.
Thank you.
Yeah. See, mark it down. Josh was right.
You get the point.
Got a mic drop moment there, Josh.
Yes, that's right. Walk away.
So, do you guys have any other questions for Carrie?
Well, I do actually have a kind of summarization of kind of things we've talked about. I know a couple of different thoughts that seem to be very popular in managing people. And I know we've talked very heavily about kind of how we do it, how you recommend doing it, how you do it yourself, with the the more of the building up, the encouragement, the accolades, at work, to let folks know that they are important, but there's a lot of folks out there that believe, get your praise at home. You're here to do a job, you're here to do this. I mean, for those folks that may be listening, I mean, what would be, your advice for that kind of a hard stance?
Get your praise at home. Yeah. How's it working for you?
Yeah. Yeah.
How's it working for you? If you're in a restaurant that you have people, the truth is, I work with plenty of restaurateurs that do not pat on the back, that are not necessarily over the top, and you don't have to be. But if it works for them and they have an amazing team and they're loyal, and keep going with it. You're who you are. You're loyal. Nobody wants to work for somebody who isn't true to themselves. Now, if you're a person that's absolutely annoyed by people and you don't want to pat them on their back, but they need that, you need to find somebody. You can still be the restaurateur, but you've got to find somebody that will do that. And I will tell you, 9 times out of 10, people want to come to work. It doesn't need to be completely over the top, but they want to feel cared about in at some level. They want to be told. Who doesn't like to be told, you have done a great job? Mm-hmm. Everybody wants to hear that. And why wouldn't you want to do that in your workplace? I am a believer. It is really hard to separate business and personal. For me, it's all the same. I'm a good person at home. I'm a good person at work. I want to make people feel good. If it's going to benefit you and, it's just a good way to be, why wouldn't you want to tell people they're doing a great job? And again, I talked to you guys a little earlier about how the difference is between my husband and me. When my husband tells someone they're doing a good job, it probably means a lot more to them than when I say it, because I do say it a lot. He says it very rarely. But it works for him how he does it, and so long as it's working for him, Mm-hmm. So if somebody were standing in front of me and said, I don't believe in doing that, I don't believe that I need to pat people on their backs or tell them that they're great, or I don't have to, be so focused on creating a happier restaurant, I would just say, great. Do you have a team that you're satisfied with? Are you happy? Are you thriving? Is your restaurant successful? I would guess that most of the time it would be no, maybe not, but really, people, and this hasn't changed. This isn't a millennial thing, in my opinion. This isn't a generational thing. When I was 15, when I was 20, when I was 25, when I was 30, when I was 35, I'll stop there. I wanted to feel like I was a part of something special. I wanted to feel a part of a great team. I wanted to be recognized for my efforts and for the great things that I have done. And most of the people that I know like to feel that way, So I would say it's a positive thing, not a negative thing. Now, if things are not going well and somebody isn't great or your team isn't, there's no need to try to make it seem like it through the things you say if it's not true. But as the coach of your restaurant, as the leader, it's your job to get a stellar team. So, and if you look at the sports coaches, every one of these coaches are different. Some of them are yellers and screamers, and some of them, not saying that I think that's okay in the restaurant, but some of them, they have different strategies and different plays and different tactics to get their team to, quote, win the game. And so it's the same thing is true out there in the world of business or the world of restaurants, is you've got to figure out how you can build an amazing restaurant, run a great operation, have the best people possible, and and make money and grow your brand or whatever your goals are. And you've got to figure out how it's going to work for you.
Exactly. I mean, you're spending the majority of your time every single week with their people that you're working with. So set yourself up with the right team and the right people, so that way, no matter what, you have a happy environment that's going to be productive and very successful in time.
Yeah. Absolutely. And, employees, just like customers, you have to adapt your style. Like a customer, you don't say and act the same exact way to every single customer that comes into your restaurant. You don't do the same thing either with employees. People have different needs. I might need something a little different than Anthony, in terms of what I how I'm led, or what you say to me, or what I need out of this job. But you've got to figure that out. You've got to figure out what motivates each person on your team, and then how to get everybody to work together. Again, it's not easy, but easy is so boring. It's so boring.
All right, well, I just want to thank you so much for your time with us today, and also congratulate you again on the book that's coming out. So
thank you so much.
We really appreciate what you're doing in the industry, and for taking the time to speak with us today on QSR Nation.
If anybody's got other questions for you or anything, where can they reach out to you at?
I can be reached on LinkedIn, and my website is carrieluxem.com. So those would be the best two ways to find me.
Awesome. And everybody, for sure, March 20th, it's the Restaurant Operators HR Playbook. Be sure to look it up and buy a copy, buy several copies.
Thank you for that.
And if anybody has any questions for us, they can reach out to us at QSR Nation at pfsbrands.com. And please subscribe to the podcast on pfsbrands.com/podcast. Carrie, once again, for all three of us, a huge thank you.
Thank you, guys.
And for all the listeners today, for Josh, Beth, and Tony, we'll talk to you next week.
Stop by next week for another QSR Nation episode or visit pfsbrands.com.